Greetings, my name is Kevin Smith. I am the Technology Board Chairman at Bryn Mawr Community Church, and we have another episode of A Closer Look where we talk to some of the guest messengers we've had in the church and kind of talk about what inspired their sermon and talk about, their Christian walk up to this point. But a guest minister does not really is not justified by this gentleman here, because he is definitely a longtime family member of Bryn Mawr. So he's not really a guest, but we want to treat him like a guest. We appreciate his presence at Bryn Mawr. Go ahead and reintroduce yourself to our audience.
God bless each and every one of you. This is Reverend Michael Jones, former assistant pastor at Bryn Mawr.
You were at Bryn Mawr 2 weeks ago where you gave a sermon, and I believe the title, correct me if I'm wrong, is Your Vision 2020?
But most of us cannot see God's redemptive powers at work because we are too focused on our problems. We're too strung out on what we're going through or what we've been through.
Talk about kind of the inspiration for that sermon and why you felt it was an appropriate sermon for Bryn Mawr. What was it about the sermon that spoke to you?
The original reason for that sermon, I had been going through some eye trouble after the death of my wife and trying to get a doctor appointment and all of this. As I was studying one evening, God says, okay, now that's your physical eye, but what about spiritual eyes? What is happening within the church that is causing us not to see where God wants us to go to? So with that, I started to thinking about it, and the Holy Spirit was speaking to me. And so I wrote the sermon. Now, I had preached the sermon at my church a little bit before, but when it came time to come to Bryn Mawr, they've been looking for a pastor for some time now. And I asked the Lord, I said, what can I have them to do? He said, ask them to look with their spiritual eye. See, we always listen and like, oh, he looks nice, he's this, that, and the other. But sometimes you got to see with a spiritual eye. Ask God to give you the vision of what he wants the church to have. So that came about me using that sermon and that title.
Okay. Now, you speak about using kind of your spiritual eye. You'll hear some people talk about using their third eye, just kind of looking deeper than the physical, looking deeper than the superficial. What kind of things do you think a church needs to look for kind of with their spiritual eye when trying to find a new leader or a new pastor?
One, to look beyond the physical. Our first impression is by sight. Okay, so we have to look beyond the physical sometimes. Sometimes we might see someone that is very charismatic and what have you, but we haven't really listened to the Spirit in speaking to us or the spiritual aspect of their message when given. So it has to go beyond what we can see in our physical sight. And we have to sort of dig deeper into the soul of the person. And a lot of times you might not have that opportunity much to do that with someone, but when you ask the Lord to say, okay, God, let me see what you're trying to show me and tell me so that I might be able to make a decision based on that.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, and certainly we want to offer your condolences for the loss of your wife. I did not know your wife well, but I've known you for a long time, and it's just I know it's an adjustment for you, and I know it's been, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Tell me kind of from the perspective of someone, you're normally called when someone else is kind of experiencing grief and experiencing that kind of transition in their life. What is it like for you having to kind of go through that? And kind of how is your spiritual foundation and your work as a reverend, as a minister, how has that either provided comfort or made it more challenging? How has that interacted in your experiencing this grief at this time?
It has been really challenging. It tests your spirit. It tests your faith. It tests all of the aspects in which you would protrude on someone else to tell them, the Lord will get you through. Be comfort, things will change. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. But nobody prepares you. And I have a better perspective on it now. And I thought about this question within myself that you've asked.
Right.
Nobody prepares you for that emptiness. Nobody prepares you for that loss. My wife and I have been married for 42 years, and we've been together 53 years. And, we were like Bopsy twins side by side the whole time. So it was a very, there's times even now when I'll hear certain songs or see certain things, or even walk through the house sometimes, and look at certain objects. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'll just break down and cry, because I can look at certain things or hear certain things, and I can remember what we were doing, where we were at when we were doing it, how old we were, and just so many things. And they're good things. They're not bad things. But the crying is a both joyful for knowing that we had that time together, as well as hurt for knowing that we won't be able to make new ones.
Right.
And so now when it comes to, as I sat one night and just actually thought about it and looked at it, I had to dig deep within myself to realize that even though I was in pain and what have you with her absence, God knew best and knew what she was going through, because she died from cancer, and the cancer had worsened. So she was in a lot of pain. And sometimes we want to keep our loved ones here, but we don't realize that by trying to ask God to keep them here, the agony that they're going through is not right.
Right. Unfortunately, I've had to deal with that. I was not married for 50 years, but my girlfriend at the time, this was in 2009, she passed away from,
I remember,
ovarian cancer. And I'm not gonna say that I had the same relationship that you had with your wife, but some of the things I heard you mention, I had those, a lot of those same things, where you'll see something on TV, or you'll see a movie, or you'll drive past something like, man, I remember Jessica and I used to do this or that, and it's those same, and those initially, they bring, you get to a point where, if you could allow me to kind of give you a little perspective, because this was something that I had to go through. You get to the point where those give you comfort.
Yes.
More than they hurt. Initially, yes. I think they hurt. It was the same thing with my dad, being in the house, seeing things. Well, they would hurt me remembering him, or remembering, someone that I love. But I think eventually you get to a place where it's not so acutely painful, And you're
Yes.
more like, I remember that, and I have reverence for that. You know what I mean?
And that's one of the other things when I talked about Is Your Eyesight 2020. We have to be able to look beyond not everybody else's fault, but our own faults. We have to be able to look beyond what we cannot change and know that God is still in control. And it's only by the grace of God that we're here. I told my congregation a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks back, I told them, I says, do you all realize, and I think I said this when I was at Bryn Mawr, I said, do you all realize that every night that you go to bed, you die? I said, think about it. It's not guaranteed that you get up in the morning. And once you go to sleep, you don't know what's going on. You might dream, but you don't know what's going on. So every time God opens your eyes in the morning, he's giving you a new day, a new opportunity, a new blessing.
Is once you left Bryn Mawr, what has been your walk? What was next for you after leaving Bryn Mawr?
It's a little funny because when I left Bryn Mawr, I left in the middle of the year. I left that June. And I'll never forget it. I left that June, and the church that I'm pastoring now, I moved all my stuff over there. I went back to my home church.
Okay.
And I said, okay, Lord, I'll just stay here and play the drums. And because the pastor was still there at that church, I'll just stay here and play the drums and I'll be happy, And God said, no. He said, for the next 6 months, I'm going to send you to a different church each Sunday. I want you to learn the good, the bad, and the ugly of what man's religion is. And I'm like, what? He wanted me to see what he wanted me to be and what he didn't want me to be. He wanted me to see the hypocritical part of religion, as man said, like the scribes and the Pharisees were doing, and it was really, I look at it now and I'm like, man, what he had me do was awesome. I said, but I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, because some of the churches I went to were people that I'm not going to say worship, but I admired. And then to see their interaction outside of the pulpit and things sometimes that go on in the pastor's office that the congregation don't know about. I'll give you a tad bit on one, and I'm not calling no names, but I went to visit a guy and I've been knowing him for years. We're sitting in his office and he was talking about his congregation and he was calling them the N-words and these so-and-so is getting on my nerves and da-da-da-da. And I'm sitting there and I'm cringing. I'm ready to get up and walk out. And then one of his deacons came and knocked on the door and he says, Pastor, you got the cordless mic on in your office.
No way.
Yeah. I just shook my head. I said, okay, Lord, I got the message on this one.
Wow.
Can't take away from the message that he preached, but as far as their actions, and sometimes actions speak louder than words.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
Because you can get a good message from a jackass.
Right.
The Bible even showed us that.
Right. A broken clock is right twice a day. So, Well, look, Reverend Jones, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and indulge hearing me talk about some of my stuff and sharing some of your stories too. I think the congregation will really, really enjoy it. If someone wanted to follow, do you have like social media or anything like that? If anyone wants to kind of follow you?
We're on Facebook under Greater Rock of Ages. Right now, my daughter is doing the Facebook service from 9 to 10 on Sunday morning. She'll be doing it until I come back. I'm on sabbatical until until November. If I said February, they'd be killed me. But but I'll be back in the pulpit and on Facebook November 1st. Well, the first Sunday in November.
Okay. Well, I'm sure they'll be happy to have you back, and we love you at Bryn Mawr. So whenever you want to come back and and share with us, you know, you're more than welcome.
No problem at all. You know, and just like I told you all when I left, that Sunday that I left, I said, if you all need me for anything, feel free to call me.
Man, thank you. Thank you. This is Reverend Michael Jones, family member of Bryn Mawr Community Church. My name is Kevin Smith. I am the Technology Board Chairman. Thank you for watching.
God bless you.